Welcome to the Grazing Grass Podcast, episode 42.
No, absolutely. In fact, it was, as we say, a farm built from scratch. Um, we didn't have any places to stay. There was no barn, no corrals, no water, no electricity, just some broken fences.
You're listening to the Grazing Grass Podcast, helping grass farmers learn from grass farmers. And every episode features a grass farmer and their operation. I'm your host, Cal Hardage. On today's show, we have Juan from Argentina. And Juan, I want to apologize. I am not attempting your last name. But in a little bit, Juan will tell us more about himself, his grass farmer, and he is from South America, the first guest we have from South America. Him and his wife are building a regenerative and sustainable farm utilizing cattle, sheep, and goats. Before we talk to Juan, last week we announced a giveaway and had great participation. Thank you to everyone who left a review and emailed it in. I will email the winner today and get their book shipped to them. If you didn't win or haven't participated, there is time. Listen after Juan's interview for more information. Let's talk to Juan. Juan, we want to welcome you to the Grazing Grass Podcast. We're excited to have you on here today.
Hi, Cal. Thanks a lot for having me. It's a big honor.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your operation?
Well, my name is Juan Sanguinetti. I am from Buenos Aires, Argentina, in the southern tip of South America. Together with my wife, Soledad, and our 4 kids, we have a livestock operation in the Argentinian Pampas. Our story, like any other story, is a particular story. I'm a city boy. I was raised in the northern suburbs of a big city. Nowadays, it's 15 million people. Uh, I went to a bilingual school where I was lucky enough to meet my wife. After that, I studied law. And after becoming a lawyer, I studied for another 4 years. I got specialized in corporate and real estate law and got a public notary public register at Buenos Aires. Since then, I have worked in what nowadays is my notary office. But all that happened, I realized that I really needed contact with nature.
Oh, yes.
So we started with a home plant and tree nursery. Um, uh, we raised eucalyptus, casuarinas, palm trees, jacarandas, and several other species. And so I realized I had what we call here a green hand, kind of a talent, have a knack for,
Yes.
for plants and for trees. So clearly I was, good at raising plants and doing trees. And so our dream slowly started to take shape, So some years after that, we started to search for an opportunity. We drove half of the province of Entre Rios looking for one for about 4 years or so. And finally, we found some, and eventually we chose one and went for it. So in January 2015, we finally bought La Zoila farm.
I just think that's an interesting journey you've started thus far. Um, growing up in an urban setting, becoming a lawyer, and then to plants, and now to purchasing land. When you purchased the land, did you think, "Oh, I'm going to put cattle on it"?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We have some relationship with farms. My grandfather and my great grandfathers were farmers, and as well as my father-in-law too.
Oh,
So
yes.
so we knew we wanted to be farmers.
That That makes sense. So you purchased your land in January of 2015?
Yeah. We bought it. La Zoila is a 260 hectare farm, which is about 642 acres. It's close to the city of Gualeguaychú in the Entre Rios province. Um, it's quite close to the Argentinian Uruguayan border. In fact, we can see Uruguay from the tallest parts of our farm, and hopefully we will be adding
Oh, yes.
a new plot shortly. Um, this farm is about 215 kilometers northwest of Buenos Aires, which is about 130 miles. And well, the climate there, it's quite temperate, warm and temperate, I should say. We have four distinct seasons with a mild winter, so we have no snow, and with an average annual temperature of about 15 degrees centigrade, that is 64 degrees Fahrenheit, with minimums of
Oh,
28
yes.
Fahrenheit and maximums of 104, that is minus 2 degrees centigrade and 40 degrees centigrade. So it's kind of temperate, you know.
Yes.
Our precipitation there has an thank God an even distribution. We have about 1,200 millimeters, that is about 47 inches, um, with an average annual humidity of 75%. But unfortunately, what we have there is a clay layer that make things hard. Um, so it's poorly drained, but we have gentle slopes, so water eventually uh, goes away, and we manage to keep on farming. You know.
So when you purchased the farm, was it ready for cattle?
No, absolutely. In fact, it was, as we say, a farm built from scratch. Um, we didn't have any places to stay. There was no barn, no corrals, no water, no electricity, just some broken fences and a place that had been badly treated for a long, long time, under conventional
Mhm.
grazing by people who rented the place. So they had overgrazed it,
Oh, yes.
and they didn't take care at all for a long time. So we found lots of degraded soil.
So, so you purchased a place with plenty of potential, plenty of room for improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though, I mean, talking about potential, even though we didn't have any experience in managing livestock, as I told you, we had some family farming background, though. But that blank page where we started turned out to be an opportunity as well. It was something bad and something good at the same time. We were not conditioned
Oh, yes.
by the things, by the way people are farming, Um,
Yes.
so we knew it wasn't a hobby farm. Um, we put a lot of effort in that, and well, so we just kept moving and being open to what was best for the place,
So what was your first thing to do when you purchased the land?
um, the first thing to do was get a big list of people to help us. We were
Yes.
foreigners. We were foreigners in the place, so we needed contact with locals and with not necessarily no locals at the same time that could give us a hand. And at that same time, I started studying a lot, and I know. I mean, we had to do everything from scratch. So we did all the watering,
Yes.
and we did all the fences, and we learned how to graze. We almost started with rational grazing with rotational grazing, which was a great thing to do. So, I mean, we had to do everything.
On your rotational grazing, did your relatives use rotational grazing, or was it something you had discovered through your research?
No, I discovered through my research. In fact, the people I talked to, they weren't doing this at all.
Did you how did you discover it, if you recall that?
Well, I got a book by Alan Savory and some other books.
Oh, yes.
So I thought it was wonderful, and at the same time, once I talked to someone who told me that he had learned something about this, so I just went on and watched every YouTube video I could, and so on. So I mean, we went for it, you know.
Yes. Very good. We talk a lot about on this podcast just getting started, and it sounds like you jumped in on the deep end.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the place was so degraded that it was so obvious that conventional grazing um, was not doing good to the place, you know. So uh,
Yes.
I mean, it was quite natural to go for that.
When you started, what kind of grasses do you have there? What kind of forages?
No, we just had the normal forages, the natural forages you have there, but we first did some sorghum in order to put things a little bit in shape, you know. And after that,
Oh,
we
okay.
went for consociated pasture. A couple of years after that, and we drilled. We did no drill. Um, uh, White and red clover and lotus corniculators, you know, bird's foot trefoil, I believe you call it,
Oh, yes.
and some
Yes.
fescue and some bromus. So, I mean, it was wonderful. It was amazing, and how things are getting better year after year. It's absolutely amazing.
And those forages you mentioned are very familiar to us, because that's what we're using as well.
Uh huh. Yeah, we're as well letting some in the last years. We have been letting some of the native grasses come in too. So our our cows are doing a great job there, putting everything in place and making
Oh, yes.
some weight out of that pasture, you know.
Yes.
And as well, we're having some cool season grass with ryegrass, and as I told you, we keep doing warm season with sorghum, Sudan grass.
Oh, yeah. Very good. Does the cool season grasses, do they grow very long for you?
The cool season grass, our ryegrass, for instance, starts in March, and we have it till November, more or less. But
Oh,
I'm not
yes.
certain if you call promotion. We call here promotion when you leave that ryegrass seed. No,
Oh, okay.
so by more or less by start of October, I leave that ryegrass seed reseed.
So it'll reseed
So we
itself.
keep on having ryegrass.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we have, we have certain paddocks that have where we're making cool and warm season grasses, but I certainly prefer to have consociated pastures. So I believe we're slowly moving out of these monocultures to go to a much more complex pasture. Yeah, and as well, I'd love to have even more species of grasses.
Oh,
We're
yes.
slowly keep bringing the native grasses, and I'm looking for other grasses as well to slowly drill to our pastures.
Um, on talking about the drilling, you drilled in ryegrass. Have you had to do any more drilling of that, or has it reseeded enough for you?
No, I just no, we just drilled it once,
Oh,
and
okay.
after that, we kept promoting it for the last 4 years.
Oh, very good. And right now, you are um, getting ready to come up on springtime. Would that be correct?
Yeah, in fact we're yeah, we're in spring right now. Yeah,
Oh, you're in spring right now. Yeah. So,
yeah,
which is always an exciting time.
it is, and challenging time as well.
Do you have it is, yeah. Do you have your cows, Kevin, this spring?
Yes, yes, we do. We do. No, we have our livestock is composed of red Angus, which we breed. They're quite hardy for a place. The place might be sometimes a little bit harsh, due to parasite problems and so on, flies,
Oh,
and
yes.
as well we have a commercial herd that is made up of Angus and black and red Angus and Hereford. And we as well have a mixture of both two and a little Brahman blood. But we're slowly moving towards having our own cattle that are actually raised in our farm. These cattle is doing much better than the cattle under the commercial herd. They're
Oh,
kind of
yes.
accustomed to the place.
So, are you raising your own bulls?
No, no, we have we have a bull of our own. We're doing some insemination as well,
Oh, yes.
and just a couple of days ago, we bought our second bull. Thank God. So we're slowly, slowly growing.
Yes. Well, that's the best way. It gives you time to figure out the way you want to do stuff, gives you that trial and error. I was just talking to my dad earlier today, talking about how we need to do things the wrong way a few times before we figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good way of learning.
Yes.
You have to be humble to learn from your mistakes.
Yes. Uh, it's always a learning experience for us. So you have your cattle. Let's jump back just a little bit. We were talking about your land when you purchased it. The fences were down. You had to do watering. How did you, or what kind of fencing did you put up?
Well, um, we put a lot of effort into doing our perimeter fence first. Um, we put there a permanent high tensile 6 string
Oh,
galvanized wire.
yes,
Uh, yeah, 6 string with wooden posts. And then we moved on doing our internal fences. Um, we have some for permanent paddocks with 5 string, sometimes 6 string, but mostly 5 string permanent steel with mostly with steel posts. Not
oh,
sometimes with wooden posts, but mostly with steel posts. No
yes,
barbed wire. We don't like barbed wire.
oh, yeah,
Uh, and as well, then we have, of course, the temporary fencing subdivisions, which are mostly of 1 or 2 strands of poly wire. Um,
yes,
we do them with these portable fiberglass stepping posts. The ones that where you may put multiple strands or
yes.
pigtails.
Okay,
And
yeah,
we use these ground rods with the reels.
yes.
And of course, we use lots of our energizers as well.
Do you have a preference for your energizers?
We're using a local brand called Picana, but I'm looking forward to perhaps buying another one. Um, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yes.
We're also making several alley systems, animal walkways to make the managing easier, and that turned out to be something quite good um, for the day to day management.
Now, in your alleyways, are you having that where they have alleyways back to water, or are you using the alleyways just for movement?
Both. We have our troughs in some of the walkways, and as well for the managing factor.
You mentioned troughs. Did you run pressurized water throughout your pastures?
Yes, we made two wells.
Okay.
Each of them have their submersible pumps. One is connected to a power grid. The other one is solar powered because we cannot get a grid over there.
Yes.
And each of those pumps have their storage tanks, which in Argentina are called, I don't know why, Australian tanks. They are
Oh.
made up of corrugated galvanized sheets with an open top.
Oh, yes.
And so we have one of our tanks has 10 sheets, which is about 8,500 gallons. That is 70,000 liters. And the other one is of 7 sheets of about 13,000 gallons, which is more or less 50,000 liters. And they go out to a network of plastic pipes of 2 and 1.5 inch, according to the place where they're in, which are
Yes.
buried on the ground. Uh, that was about they're about 2.2 miles long. We put a lot of effort into that, and this networks feeds 10 concrete water troughs with a concrete base.
Very.
We do not have mobile troughs yet. Yeah, it's quite nice, and it works wonderfully.
Do you need some mobile watering troughs, or do those concrete ones handle all your pastures or paddocks well?
I mean, they work very well, but as you'll see afterwards, we're moving towards more complexity, and I'd love to do some head tail grazing, for instance, and these mobile water troughs would do great in that system. We also our livestock is also composed of other animals, not only um, cattle, and we have goats as well and sheep as well. So I'd love to try eventually a head tail grazing system with mobile water troughs. But as I told you, we're going slowly, heading
Yes.
towards the following challenges year after year.
Now, you're saying a head tail grazing system. Can you describe what that is more?
Well, it's about making temporary fencing subdivisions, but having for instance, the cows, for instance, having the first part of the grass, and after that, moving them to the following subdivision, to the following paddock, and having a mixture of animals, perhaps old cows, perhaps mixed with goats or mixed with sheep, eat the subdivision that was left over by the cows or the growing steers, for
Oh,
instance.
yes.
So in this way, I mean, you get you maximize productivity, and you get to eat, for instance, weeds. That's something I'm looking
Oh,
forward to.
yes.
Not to use herbicides eventually.
Yeah, you get that first group that's eating the higher quality stuff, and that second group consuming some of the lower quality, but also eating those weeds and other things. Sometimes it's referred to as leader follower grazing as well.
Yes, leading
Yeah.
furrow. Yes, it's yeah, it's true.
So I wanted to find out more about your goats and sheep.
Where we're doing right now some experimentation in our farm. You know, I heard of all of your podcasts, of all of your episodes so far, and
Yes.
everyone, but I believe one or two, didn't talk well about your goats. Um, but it's a quest. I mean, I you know.
Yes.
Uh, when our cows leave our paddocks, they leave lots of weed. So I guess we can turn that weed, we can control that weed, turning it into kilograms. And as
Oh,
well,
yes.
our farm has lots of woods, So these, for instance, the goats, you can see them eating branches, as we say here. They
Yes.
they they give water out of the stones, So they trim they I mean they browse the tree leaves and the shrubs. So if you keep rotating them, they will trim your tree branches, and so more light gets underneath the canopy. So after that, of course, I mean, sometimes 1 plus 1 is 3.
Right.
You will have more grass eventually. Of course, if you manage them correctly, no, you shouldn't overgraze with goats too. I mean, you have to bring goats and sheep into the rotation. That's what we're trying to do right now.
And I think as you mentioned that, you're really striking on an important point about that. You're identifying what species work for your land. And you've got some browse there, which is wonderful for goats.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We have lots of, for instance, we have there a weed that it's called senecio. I think you call it senecio. We call it here senecio. It's a plant that comes from Madagascar. We just got yellow flower, which is quite
Oh, yes.
toxic for cattle. And in this experimental parcel that we have, after 2 or 3 months, you cannot find one of those. So I mean, it's not toxic for them, but it's toxic for
Oh,
cattle.
yes.
So they're doing a wonderful job. They're doing a wonderful
Very
job.
good.
If you raise your head and looks anywhere else, you will find lots of that weed, but not in the experimental parcel. So that's why we're trying. Nowadays, we're building some permanent fences within the woods to keep rotating, um, not only the cows but as well goats and sheep as well.
Oh, yes. And what breed of goats are you using?
Well, we're trying with 3 different breeds. We have the Anglo-Nubian, the Boer, which is the South
Yes.
African. Anglo-Nubian, I believe they come from Britain, and the
Oh,
Saanen,
okay.
which come from
Yes.
Switzerland. Um, my wife loves Anglo-Nubians, but I would want to keep the Boers, because they're like little tanks.
That they are. They're built a lot more solid.
And they do fine. They do fine
Yes.
here. Yeah, yeah. And then we have as well sheep. We have these Hampshire Down sheep.
Hampshire sheep?
Yeah, yeah. They're double
Oh, yes.
purpose. They're good for, I mean, meat and wool.
Do you have a decent market for wool there?
Not really. I mean, um, I'm not expecting to in the short term to sell these
Oh,
sheep.
yeah.
I'm doing just the experimentation and eating some meat once in a while,
Yes.
But I'm not looking forward to selling our
Oh,
wool
okay.
in the short term, at least.
And Hampshires get pretty good size. And I have to be honest, I don't know a lot about them.
Yes, they do. The place where we are in Entre Rios province, most of the sheep are Hampshire,
Oh,
and they
yes.
do great there.
Well, very good. And when you talk about uh, you're experimenting with the goats and sheep and seeing how to go, where do you see your farm going for the next few years?
Well, we have lots of goals, long term and short term goals. Um, you know, my wife once told me that she saw the farm as a project incubator. The farm will accept any project you propose.
Yes.
So uh, we're planning to do lots of things there, but mostly we must get to be more productive. We must become better grass farmers uh, and building quality through management.
Yes.
That's a goal. We need to scale our production too. And as I told you, we're trying to build a system that is resilient to climate change um, through managing complexity. No, as I said, all these goat and sheep into rotation thing.
We'll come back to the climate change or resilience in just a little bit for the overgrazing section. But before we come back, what are some
Okay.
challenges you've had in getting your farm started and to the point it is now?
Well, starting from scratch, I believe almost everything was a challenge for us. We started from a blank page. As I told you, we saw that as an opportunity. Uh, we didn't start conditioned by preconceptions. Nevertheless, um, we had to build this infrastructure, the watering, the fences, the barn, buying a tractor, all the internal roads. There were lots of challenges, and one of those was as well to build a team. You know, um, well, we come from Buenos Aires. We have a little distance going to a farm. That was also a challenge, and to build a team in another province was challenging too. But I think we're getting to that place. We're very happy with the people we work with.
Very good. That team building portion um, involving other people can be really difficult.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. But I mean, when you're trying to do things right, things turn out to be much easier.
Yes.
Um, I believe people can tell that we're trying to do things right um, in all levels, in all possible levels.
Very good. I am sure you're doing great things there. One, let's go ahead and move to our overgrazing section. It's where we take a deep dive into some facet of your operation. And we discussed this a little bit earlier, and we were talking about climate resilience.
Well, yeah, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization (FAO), by 2050, the world population shall be increasing from about 7,500 million to about 10,000 million people. So they also say that we must increase, due to demographic reasons, we must increase by 70% um, the world food production over that period. Um, at the same time, unfortunately, it is clear that resources are getting exhausted. Um, and as well, climate change puts some extra strain too. This is perhaps the mother of all battles.
Yes,
Um, so I truly believe that we're required to start working differently. Um, we must pursue strategies to create an agricultural system that our planet can sustain. And perhaps the word sustainability isn't enough. We must move towards regeneration,
Yes.
towards building, not sustaining. Um, but if we talk about sustainability, we're not only talking about ecological sustainability, but also um, economic sustainability. Um, so I believe we must innovate, and those who can adapt will be the winners of the future. No,
Yes.
so I'm trying to see, even though climate change, of course, an awful thing, I'm trying to see this proactively. I really believe that this challenge is a huge opportunity for doing things right, no, for mankind. And grass-fed beef and rotational grazing may be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. So
Yes.
we must try to build a system that is as resilient as can be. Um, this perhaps means managing complexity, for instance. Diversification enhances stability, as we can see in these wooded, brushy areas. If you get into a brushy area that where nature is doing by its own its job, you might see, if you're open enough and you can get to sense nature, um, you will see a place that is in balance. No, so after all, diversity is stability. This diversity, you see temperature stability, moisture stability, natural play control. Um, that's why I mean, um, in perhaps here in Argentina, people are taking our woods out to plant soybeans, no?
Oh, yes.
And after 10 or 15 years, those fields are absolutely devastated. So I'm not talking badly about soy fields. Soy fields are great, but we must rotate, Um, we must try to look for balance. And with these changing weather patterns that we have, for instance, here in Argentina, we have, I don't know in the States, but we have El Nino and La Nina. So we have years of drought and years of excess humidity. And this obliged us to be flexible and to cope with the dynamics of this situation. Um, we must learn to work with nature, not against it. We must enforce it. We must enforce it. I think someone in your podcast once said this, and I totally agree with this. We must learn to work with nature, not
Yes.
against it. So we must try to be not only carbon neutral but carbon positive. And I believe in the short term, um, we will be um, doing some certification. I mean, not in my family. I mean, generally,
Oh,
this
yeah.
will be the only way to work in the near future. We must do some carbon sequestration, and we must certify that. That
Yes.
is the right way to do things. And what we're looking for in our farm, as I told before, is this multi-species rational grazing, which we call pastoreo racional multiespecie in Spanish. This is to diversify production with different livestock species, but as well with different plant species. For instance, having grass and legumes in every field. That's why we're moving out slowly from the monoculture of ryegrass or sorghum.
Yes.
And after all, we will benefit from that synergy between different species. Um, I mean, this is a bit what we're doing right now. We're getting connected, you know?
Right.
Um, People are getting connected, and plants must get connected, and species must get connected. That is the right way, I believe, to cope with climate change.
I agree with what you're saying, Juan. As we look out at Mother Nature and what she does, we don't find a monoculture out there in anything, whether we're talking plant species, animal species, anything. It's a polyculture of whatever we're discussing. And I think that diversity or
Yeah,
polyculture is so very important.
yes, I believe that too. And as well, I believe we must match correctly our livestock species to the land resource we have. I don't
Exactly.
think the human race has done good that job in the previous years. No, we're trying to fit only cows, for instance, in a parcel. No, but if we put different species, they will do a much better job because that's the way nature works.
Yes, I'm guilty of that as well. Um, I had my meat goats and I sold my meat goats. Um, they're they're probably my favorite animal on the farm outside of them getting out of my paddocks, but I didn't have enough brush for them at the time. So I was
Uh
forcing
huh.
a, a round peg into a square hole or vice versa, and having them graze more grass rather than browse enough. And when you do that, you start running into some other issues because that's not what they're made for.
Well, in my place, we have all that shrub because there has been only one species, and that is cows.
Oh,
We
yes.
only had cows for the last 100 years or so. So the brush came in. We have a local brush called chilca, which doesn't let any sunlight in. So you don't have grass, you just have chilca.
Oh, yes.
So what our goats are doing, they're clearing out that, but not overgrazing. No,
Right.
they're clearing out that, and grass is, and we're having more diversity. They're doing a job nature does.
Yes.
But I must focus on this. We don't have to. I mean, goats are great. What is wrong with goats is when they're managed incorrectly.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're completely accurate with that. And jumping back just a little bit as you started, when we started this about climate resilience and sustainability, and you talked about your farm being sustainable. Your farm has to be profitable for you to realize your goals. Um, you, if you're losing money, you can't continue on and get to where you need to. So you've got to have your farm be profitable.
Absolutely. That's why we must talk, about not only ecologic sustainability. I'm not being a fanatic here. I don't believe in fanatisms. We must reach economic sustainability as well.
Yes,
We must pursue it.
I, I completely agree. Juan, I've really enjoyed our conversation thus far, and it's about time for us to move into our famous four questions. But before we get to the famous four, is there anything you'd like to add to what you've said before that maybe I didn't ask about or we moved on too quickly from?
No, no, it's good.
All right.
Excellent.
I I had that suggestion from a past guest that maybe we should uh, give a chance for some thoughts there because sometimes these conversations they don't always go where I think they're going to go in the beginning, but they're all really good and I don't want to take away from them. But sometimes just swing back, make sure we've got everything. Juan, it's time for our famous four questions. It's the same four questions we ask of all of our guests. Our first question: what's your favorite grazing grass related book or resource?
Well, it's a hard question. I'm a very avid consumer. Um, I must mention Alan Savory. I must mention Gabe Brown. I must mention Pablo Echeverry here in Argentina. but my favorite guest goes to a Brazilian called Luis Carlos Pinheiro Machado. He unfortunately passed away last year, and his book is called Boisson Rational Grazing: Agricultural Technology for the Third Millennium. I'm not certain if you have it in English. So hello, publishers there.
Yes.
It's a great book, wonderful book.
Oh, very good. And it's one I'm not familiar with. I will have to look it up and see if there's a translated copy, or it gives me more reason to learn to read Spanish. Our second question: what tool could you not live without on your farm?
Another difficult question. I could say my electrifiers. I could mention my tractor as well, or my electronic scale. But my choice goes out to my computer, which is right in front of me right now. With my computer, we manage our Excel spreadsheets, our health plans. It's such a wonderful source of knowledge. Um, our YouTube podcasts, and there's so much information out there. Uh, I when I come from work at night, I just can be hours in front of my computer, just learning. uh, I can find I mean, a New Zealand way of doing things, an Australian way of doing things, an American and South African, and bring it here. It's amazing. It's wonderful.
Oh, I can completely concur. The technology is just amazing. Just the potential for learning it gives us. Um, just using technology for this podcast and us having this conversation. It's amazing. It's a
Yeah,
tremendous
yeah.
tool.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Um, Remember, I'm in the southern tip of South America, and you're right now in the middle of the United
Yes,
States.
yes,
No, can you believe it? Can
and
you
we get
believe
to
it?
talk about something we both love.
Yeah, and we get to relate each other, and we
Yes,
learn to learn from each other. It's wonderful.
it is wonderful. Our third question is: what would you tell someone just getting started?
Um, I would tell them to be enthusiast, to be committed to the job, to enjoy, to be curious, to love to learn. Um, when you love to learn, there will be an enormous intensity and energy behind what you do. Um, Align yourself to a goal and align yourself to a vision. There's so much power in that. And at the same time, be humble, learn from your mistakes, be open minded to change, uh, be flexible, um, get inspired by nature, work with nature. That's a lot of advice, perhaps. Sorry for
It's all
that.
wonderful advice, Juan.
Okay, thanks for that.
And lastly, where can others find out more about you and your farm?
Well, we have a web page under construction right now, which is lazoila.com.ar, which is LAZOILA.com.ar, AR from Argentina. As well, we have our Instagram is La Zoila PRM for Pastoreo Racional Multiespecie, which is multi-species rational grazing, which is what we're trying to experiment right now.
Oh, yes.
And as well, my email address is Juan, Juan, at lazoila.com.
Very good. Juan, we will put links to that in our show notes, and we appreciate you coming on and sharing about your journey and what you're doing in Argentina.
Thank you so much for having me.
I trust you enjoyed our conversation with Juan. As always, it was great to hear how another grass farmer is operating their farm and the challenges they're facing and overcoming. I mentioned earlier in the podcast about a giveaway. It'll only take you a couple minutes to do. Go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to the podcast and leave a review. The review helps us get the word out about our podcast. After leaving the review, take a screenshot and email it to me at that's C-A-L, at grazinggrass.com. At the end of the week, we will draw another winner, and they will receive Greg Judy's latest book, How to Think Like a Grazer. Also, we have some exciting news for those that have been asking. We will have some Grazing Grass merch soon. Watch for more news on our email list or our social media accounts. You're listening to the Grazing Grass Podcast, helping grass farmers learn from grass farmers. And every episode features a grass farmer and their operation. You can find the Grazing Grass Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and we appreciate you sharing our post. Are you a grass farmer? Would you like to join me on the podcast to share about your journey and what you're doing? Go to the Grazing Grass website at grazinggrass.com, click on Be Our Guest, and fill out the form, and we'll be in touch. Until next time, keep on grazing grass. Hey there, listeners. We appreciate you tuning in and want to continue bringing you the best content we can. But producing a podcast takes a lot of time and effort, so we need your support. You can help us out by joining the Grazing Grass community and becoming a supporter for exclusive content and early releases. Also, you can buy our merch to show your love for the show, or by using our affiliate links to purchase products or services we recommend. If you can't support us financially, please spread the word and tell others about our show. Thank you for your support, and we can't wait to bring you more great conversations from grass farmers like you.